Aloha, I'm Felicia Miller Johnson, and I conduct work life video interviews with career professionals that become an all intuitive conversation. Aloha, and welcome to another episode of All Intuitive Conversation. As an all intuitive executive and life coach, I encourage people to live smart and ascend to new levels of success in their work and life. So today I have the pleasure of connecting with Sher. So let's add her to the screen. Aloha, Sher.
Hello there.
How are you?
I am doing great, thanks.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to connect with you and have this conversation. You and I have not met before. Some of my guests I have, but the majority I have not. So this is our first time connecting. So where are you connecting from? Like what part of the world are you at right now?
So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, which is finally at a palatable temperature for this year. And so we are just starting to bask in the glory of fall.
I can understand that. Yes. So are you born and raised from Phoenix, Arizona?
No, born and raised in the Midwest, have lived all over the U.S., kind of followed passions and jobs, both for myself and my husband. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just early on made a commitment to we were going to go and live in new places and see new things and, further our careers. And so are now back here as we enter kind of what I call phase two of life. You're kind of on the downhill cycle and you're starting to look at what's next and such. So it's been enjoyable to be all over the place. And now being here, we've also ruled out things like winter. Not really a big fan. Hurricanes. Not really a big fan. Phoenix, we're pretty isolated out here in the desert. Not a lot really bothers us, so it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing that stood out right away was winter. Do you like cold weather at all?
No, was born and raised in it, and then lived in the Northwest for several years. And it's one of those things where when you're in it, you just deal with it. But as soon as you get out of it, you look back on TV. You're watching the news and see these people shoveling and trying to get out, and you're like, oh, not going back to that.
Okay, because it's interesting because one of the things that I know when I connect with my guests today, my hands have been like cold, like right before I can. I mean, even to the point where I have a candle here, and I put my hand around my candle because I was like, my fingers are so cold today. But it's not enjoyable. Um, as
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, it was just an observation that I made. And then while you were sharing a little bit, I already was shuffling, and you have four cards that already
Oh, yeah.
magically came out.
Ooh.
So the very first one was talks about this whole travel piece, and they're holding this world, and it literally says at the bottom, taking the next steps. So when you were talking about the whole traveling and going to the second part of the life, and that there's this world where we're going to go wherever we decide, and there's two of them in this picture. When you were talking about it was you and your husband, so it was like, okay. So what else is on this card? It says bold and ambitious choices, partnering with others who share your dreams, expanding your plans, continue to move forward. So since you were talking about the next level, transitioning, what do you see as the next part of your life?
Sure. So I did the traditional route, did 35 plus years in, traditional jobs and moving up and doing all the things we were taught to do when you're my
Mhm.
age, because obviously you're doing the math in your head.
Mhm.
So 4 years ago, launched my own business. So I own a consultancy firm. We work with lots of different clients in the ed tech space for lots of different things because I wanted to culminate all that experience and all that passion that I have, but be able to align it in the way that I thought it needed to be aligned and be able to forego some of those, um, you know, firewalls that exist in traditional roles out there. So for me, it was, you know, taking the best of what I've learned over the years and
Hmm.
applying it and sharing it with others, how to create relationships and help people through the processes, and that was going to be really kind of my phase too. I never see myself retiring in the full sense of just, you know, you're done tomorrow, here's your cake, and that's it. I'm always going to be doing something because I have a lot of different passions. Um, and so for me, phase two is doing this now, deciding, you know, what's this going to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? And is it purely consultancy in the industry? Is it starting to branch out into other things? I was actually just noodling this morning about, you know, forward thinking and what's that going to be like? Because we now, it's not enough just to be innovative. We've got to start thinking forward at all ages, at all sectors, at all cultures,
Yep.
and look to see where we're going next.
Okay. So, yes, you are just so talking to these cards right now because the next card that came out was the Ace of Swords, but it talks about entrapment, right? And it's like you are not going to have this entrapped life, like, especially when we're talking about tech, and what that looks like. And it literally says on the bottom, the illusion of entrapment, a lack of self confidence, it makes you feel helpless, being afraid to take action, take responsibility for your life now. And so that sounds like what you're on this path of doing. I was like, okay, now what am I going to do for this next step? And she's taking off her blindfold, right? And walking through this whole new gate in
Mhm.
life. So I was like, okay, that, yeah, she's aligning with that. And then the next one, when you said that you were chill, when you were talking about you were just even thinking about your life today and what that's going to kind of look like. And the next word of encouragement that came through was this Queen of Wands that's sitting there. She's in control of her life. And on the bottom of this card, it literally says, brilliant, talented, independent, controlling. There's nothing you can't do. Believe in yourself. Never underestimate your ability to take and make your dreams come true. The need for balance between career and personal life. So that leads to this next question. So now that you're in this new phase and you had talked about your spouse, what does balance, which interestingly enough, when I prepared for this, that was the oil that I used today was balance.
Ah,
Um, was coming in strong. How are you going to balance your new business as an entrepreneur and your personal life? Have you thought about that?
oh yes, yes. I work at that regularly because when you read some of the things on that card, I think all of us have different levels of that. A lot of people say they don't have, you know, they're not strong enough to do these things. They are. They just haven't tapped into it. And
Yeah.
so I'm a workaholic by trade. That's how I've
Mm-hmm.
done what I've done and gotten where I've gotten. So it's real hard for us to step back and do nothing or, you know, hang out or binge Netflix, you know, what these people did during the pandemic. So what I do now is, you know, the first year was a lot of getting set up, getting things going. Obviously, you want to make money because you're giving up a regular salary, but you also
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that, you know, it doesn't die. So
Right.
you put a lot of time in the beginning, but you've got to set that goal that at this point, then I'm going to start to back off a little bit. And whether that's I'm hiring some temporary help, I'm getting someone to, you know, help me through this. I line up a mentor or two that I can just, you know, honestly talk about my fears and my concerns and where this is going. All of those things
Mm-hmm.
contribute to having balance. Now, 4 years into it, you know, I have a great team. They handle a lot of things. You know, I work remotely, so I work from home. When my day is over, the door shuts, and I don't usually come back in this room unless I've forgotten, like, left my phone in here or something. But I try to treat it like when I used to have an office, you know, somewhere.
Mhm.
I walk out and that's it. And then my life is outside of here. And now I do flexible hours. So there's times during the
Mm.
day where I'll step away and go do something else. And then maybe I'll work a little bit in the evening instead. So I'll kind of flip that calendar. But, when I first started doing that, I actually put things in my Google Calendar that would say to
Mm.
me, out of office at this time, and just to get the habit formed to where I wasn't
Yes.
always in here. So, now I do a lot of self care in terms of meditation, do stretching. I take time to read, I take time to do artwork. And it's not easy because when a big
Mm.
project comes or a big deadline comes, I can shift right back into that 24/7 person really fast. So I have to be careful of that. So I think,
Mhm.
for your listeners, a lot of it is also knowing how you work, recognizing yourself, recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses, and then putting things in place to start to shift those over time.
Yes, loving that. So it sounds like you have a high level of self-awareness of you enjoy working and you doing all those different things and you put in techniques to help you to be aware of that. So the next question I want to ask you is, do you know what your name means? Share?
I don't. It's short for Sherry, but I've been called that for many, many years, and so it's just kind of stuck.
Okay. So when you look up just share, because that's what you go by, it means lion. And it's
Hmm.
based off of usually more of a male name. What connected me to, because when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before we started, I noticed, like you said, you work in the tech industry, which is notorious kind of for being male dominated,
Hmm.
in that aspect of it. And the fact that, lion usually is connected with like this male type energy. So, as you're thinking about coaching and working in this field, how did you, and like I said, the drive to work, which is usually very much male dominated, how did you balance your divine feminine in such a dominated male field?
That's a tough one because I have always, by trait, been more tomboyish, less girly, I guess was the term we used to use.
Hmm.
So I fit a little more into that. I was never someone that they perceived to be, as we often do in our culture. If we see someone dressed up and very frilly and stuff, we have this natural assumption of who they are. I think we're
Hmm.
getting better at it, but I don't know that we've completely lost that.
Right.
So that helped with it. But I think also what I had to start with early on was having them recognize what I could bring to the table. So where was the value added?
Yes.
I think anytime you meet someone and you understand the value of what they're going to do or how they're going to help you or what they're going to do to make things better, or at least help you see a clearer pathway, then you start to lose all of those superficial things, and it starts to come down to there's a real connection here, and there's something that we can do together. So,
Yes.
there's been times when I've sat down to talk with someone, and I can immediately tell they
Mm.
just don't want to talk with me. They're not excited about who I am. They think this is going to be a waste of time. Maybe even somebody referred them. So it's one of those where I didn't want to do this in the first place, and now I have
Hmm.
to, and I'm stuck with this person. It's the trifecta of a relationship building exercise.
Hmm.
And so I'm very honest with them. I'm like, "You're here. What is it that you want from me?" And oftentimes they can't answer that. So then we talk about, okay, so why are you here and what is it that you hope to gain? If anyone else but me was sitting in this chair, what would you hope to gain from this conversation? And
Hmm.
usually that opens up. Once we do that, then we start to figure out how we can work together. So, I always encourage people, don't start out with all the niceties of how are you, how's your day, what kind of, yeah, are you a dog person or a cat person? In the tech field, we don't spend a lot of time on that kind of stuff. We tend to be people that are much more uh, a control type, more focused. we're not very detailed in relationships. We're not good at that piece. You see that across the board from the C-suite down to the lowest level, entry level tech person. For a lot
Yeah.
of them, it's a difficult field. So, what I tell them is find the piece that is of interest to both of you. That's the
Mm,
starting point. Once you talk about that, you can move into the other areas.
yes. Okay. Because the card that came out next was this fraud in this whole face. There's two faces. And basically kind of what you're describing is don't come in with this pretend face. Come in with like, hey, we're here for business. This is the authentic self and try and doing that. And the fact that, it's a woman holding these faces up. So the next question that I want to ask you, being guided to ask you, is describe the magic that Sherry brings.
The magic. Wow, that's an interesting question. Because I don't think of it as magic. I think of it as culmination of life living,
Hmm.
which I suppose could be magical. But again, type A person, it tends to be more linear for me. I'm a
Hmm.
huge relationship builder. I like to talk with people. I like to figure out what their interests are, what they're passionate about. I like to figure out where they want to go.
Mm.
When somebody comes to me and says, I need help moving up, I need help moving across, I need help just, you know, figuring out who I want to be, what I want to do. Um, that to me is interesting because people don't give themselves enough self worth.
Mm.
And so, one of the things that I'll do is I'll go out and look at their LinkedIn page or I'll look at, on a Facebook page or something. Um, and it's always fascinating to me that on Facebook, you're hiking, you're climbing mountains, you're, kayaking, you're doing all these fantastic, really challenging things. And then
Hmm.
on LinkedIn, you're like, oh, I worked in this department for 6 months and I worked here for 8 months. And you don't really show all of that in there. And so I like to kind of look and see and have them understand who they really are,
Yeah.
where they're actually starting from, and where they can bring those things in. So for me, it's the relationship build. If we can start talking through and I can figure out how I can best help them, how I can guide them, how I can mentor them, that makes a huge, huge difference, I think, um, in what value they get from me, aside from just the technical, you
Yeah.
know, obvious knowledge that comes from the professional experience. But it's really more about the mentoring of them.
Okay. So it again sounds like you're open, connecting, and like I said, offering help to other individuals. So it's being reflected back to ask you. So share, where would you like help in your life right now?
Mm. So I always like help in maintaining balance and always like help in looking forward. Because even as pretty open thinking as I am, there's always something that comes up that you kind of have that aha moment. You didn't really think about that. It really wasn't on your radar. And so I love talking to people who are from different facets, different factors, different industries.
Mm.
I love meeting people from different countries and just hearing what's that other vision out
Mm. Okay. So you want help connecting with other individuals?
always, always. I love when people connect me to other people. I think that's the piece we have lost with technology. We used to introduce you to someone else. We used to connect you with someone else, and it took a little bit of work to connect people then. And so you were very pragmatic about doing it.
Hmm.
Technology, it's more of a, oh, I'll connect to you with this little button. But I don't really then take the time to maybe reach out to you and such. And so I think it's a lost art. So I love when people connect me with others because I think it's really, really, it shows an interest in me by other people. And I try to do the same for them when I connect someone with them. but I also think it takes it a step further because you really help start that foundational relationship.
Hmm. Okay. So I was shuffling and connecting, like, okay, the help and the connection, and I went to this crystal deck, and this was the crystal that came out was celestite, and it says soothe your soul, and this is what the words of encouragement that says about that. Trust that things happen in your life for a reason. It's natural to worry about the unknown, but try tapping into hope instead. Most of the time, the things you worry about don't actually end up happening. And when you look back, you realize how much time and energy was wasted stressing over something you had little control over. Of course, take action when you believe you can help or change the outcome of a situation. If not, try to replace any anxiety or tension with more positive thoughts. Soothe your mind, body, and spirit with the comforting notion that it will be okay in the end. The universe unfolds as it should. Let me ask you what resonates with you in that.
The entire thing. I'm always, and people tease me about it, that I actually have a friend that says my glass is over half over full, is what she terms it. I'm always optimistic. I'm always the one that says this has happened for a reason. We just need to move forward. Because I think when you allow yourself to get weighed down with all of those other parts and pieces, it ebbs away at who you are. And so many times, and I'm sure you've seen this in coaching as well, someone comes to you and they're just beaten down. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really not that they need coaching in the sense of their professional life. They're just beaten down as a person because they've allowed that to happen. And I don't like to allow that to happen. Doesn't mean it doesn't. Never take for granted when you look at someone and say, oh, they've got it all together. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
But they figured out how to handle it better. And that's what I try to do because I truly am a believer that all things happen and, something will come out of it. And you just keep moving forward. So that's what I do. And, sometimes people think I'm a little insane for saying it, but then they'll see later on that something does come from it. And they're like, oh, well, that worked out. And I'm like, yeah, I trust the universe will make it work out. Sometimes you have to give the universe a little help, but, you know, most of the time
Mm-hmm.
it just moves forward.
Well, it's interesting because the card when I was asking you about the magic and how you would describe that, you had gotten the magician. And with this card,
Ah,
it basically talks about all of the tools and resources that you have available to on your table. But a lot of times people are not using the resources that are available to them. And on the bottom it says magic is alive in your life. What you need to be a success will manifest. If you believe it, you can do it. Um, so it's like you're definitely using your tools. The word that I'm getting for the encouragement is going back to this queen, and that it's okay to take a seat, Share. It is definitely okay to take that break. Play with your cat, whatever it is, just still enjoy it and having the fun, and using all your tools and resources, but continue to use those things that will soothe your soul and encourage you in order to do the work that you're wanting to do and to serve in this tech field because it is um, presented with those challenges, and it is could be very hard and rough and challenging, but encouraging you to just take the blinders off, have a seat, enjoy, soothe your soul, and everything is going to work out perfectly.
and I always need to hear that because there are days where you just run and then you have to take a step back. And so I always love hearing words like that and thinking about, I do need to take a step back. So
Like I said,
very encouraging.
sorry, the balance, just continue to balance the life. So, well, thank you for taking time to connect with me and share information about what it is that you do. And for those that are watching, feel free to reach out to Cher. She is on LinkedIn. If you're thinking like, hey, I want to connect with her and know more about her services, be sure to do that. But as you watched, I hope you have been encouraged to live smart and ascend to new levels of success. And until we meet again next week, this has been an all intuitive conversation.